Hello and welcome to the Volleycast. I am your host, Joe Trinzi. Solo episode today as I knock my computer around. Okay, little housekeeping. Last episode, episode 36, Dave Hunt and I talked about this, but I've actually been able to coach some volleyball. I hope some of you have been as well. I've been talking with coaches all over. There's some volleyball going on. There's some NCAA seasons that are allegedly still happening. A little doubtful of that. As last I checked, Big 12 still hanging in there, SEC, ACC, the major conferences among some others. WCC was a mid-major that recently dropped out. Skeptical that any NCAA, any collegiate volleyball is going to happen, but we'll see. Maybe I hope some happens. Just in that it's been decided to be able to be done safely, and it is able to be done safely, and the athletes are better for it because a lot of them love playing volleyball and hope we can figure out a way to do it safely for them. I'd love to hear any of you. Are you coaching now? Some high school seasons are starting or maybe preparing to start. And if not, there's some camps and stuff going on. I've been doing some camps. I'm coaching a little more beach volley, a little bit of indoor, but also some beach. It's a good alternative right now for a lot of kids. Be able to play some beach volleyball. Out there in the sand, just 2-on-2 outside. It's kind of doable. I've been organizing, and pieces are coming together for a high school beach volleyball league in Delaware. It's been pretty cool. I've actually long been wanting to do that for the boys. I think for a lot of areas, beach volleyball is maybe a great option for boys, not needing as many kids to get a team together. In theory, maybe if you just had 2 or 4 guys, you could play a little beach volleyball, but all right, I'll just tell everybody now about the format that we're doing. Is it's a beach volleyball league, but we're playing team matches, so sort of NCAA style team matches, so not just a bunch of kids signing up and with a pair and playing tournaments or seasons that way, but we're gonna have matches. I think we're trying to get an 8-team league together in this one area, a little county. And it looks like that'll come into play, and then maybe a few boys teams as well. So we got to figure out how we're going to do the boys aspect, because obviously there's some more girls playing than boys. But and we're going to play kind of NCAA style matches to give the kids kind of the feel of representing not just their own pair but their teams. Kind of a fun format. We're doing just 4 pairs from a team instead of 5. One, because it's 20% less kids. So actually it seems like there's going to be some schools that are going to get 8 teams to get 8 players together, but maybe not 10. Not everybody wants to play right now or can play, or we're running the league at a pretty cheap, basically just at cost for what the facility, but it's, there's still rental fees and stuff like that and refs and stuff like that. So it's not free. And then also if you got 2 courts, it turns out that running a 4-pair match is a lot quicker than running a 5-pair match. It's 1/3 faster. So you can kind of get that 4-pair match in 90 minutes instead of more like 2 hours for a 5-pair. If they split 2-2, we're just going to have the ones pairs play a 15-point tiebreaker set. But that's kind of how we're doing that. And I'll let you all know, my massive listening audience, how that's going. And if any of you are running beach leagues or anything like that, just let me know. I'm kind of interested to hear how everybody's going on. I know a club I was working with in North Carolina, the rule, they're able to play volleyball, but it's 10 kids per court is sort of limitation. So they got a 5-on-5 league going on. So, hey, it's kind of cool. It's just adapting to what we need to adapt to. And that's most of you are coaches. So that's our job as coaches is not to get kids to play volleyball the way we want to play. It's to help kids play volleyball the best way that they can, given the situation and what they need and all that. And right now we got to adapt on the fly. And coaches that aren't able to adapt, it's probably not going to go as well for you. Regarding our coaches workshops that went on this summer, I'm working on getting them all put into sort of kind of rolling them all into a package, basically putting them all together, and people will be able to sort of purchase and download them all at once. So stay tuned for that, just kind of cleaning up the notes and a couple of the things that I didn't have as sharp in the beginning, trying to sharpen that up a little bit. And yeah, so kind of stay tuned for that. Definitely will have it done by the end of August. Definitely, maybe. And yeah, just would love to keep hearing from all of you. Tweet or Instagram me at Volleycast, or email me joe.trinzy@gmail. I'm way better at the email, to be honest with you. My social media presence is extremely minimal. I try to check, but to be honest, try not to check that often. So sometimes I'm going to look at the social media stuff once or twice a week. So I miss some stuff there if you message me. But email, I'm good for an email once a day. So yeah, what are you doing volleyball wise? What do you want to hear about? What do you want to hear that other coaches are doing around? Yeah, let me know. Okay, speaking of that, today's episode relates to a question that I got in an email. That's my favorite form of doing a podcast, because then I don't have to think of the topic. You all you think of the topics for me. So it's great. This was a good question. I love like this kind of question. I don't know. I feel like I'm answering variations of this one quite a bit, but whatever. Guess that's what I do. So this guy asks, he says, I'm a juniors volleyball player in the Midwest, and I'm super interested in going into coaching. I have a few questions for you. What can I be doing the next year before college in order to be learning how to be the best coach I can be in the future? What can I learn about volleyball coaching ideas and how the best to do it? Are there any books you would recommend to an aspiring volleyball coach? Okay, I'm going to put the book recommendation aside right now. I think I'm going to try to make that a whole separate podcast. And maybe I'll see if I can get Dave in on it as well. See if he can have some recommendations. I have a bunch of recommendations. So we'll put that one aside. But just some of the other stuff before we get into that. Hey, what can I be doing? Well, here's a few things. Number one, you have to coach. We'll talk about like kind of where you can seek out learning how to be a better coach, but you have to coach. Like if you sit around and watch YouTube videos all day about how to play, like think about in terms of how coaching and think about in terms of playing. Say one person spends all day, watching YouTube videos on volleyball technique and strategy and listening to lectures by the best coaches and this and all that. And that's what you do all day. And then somebody else just goes out there and just playing with your friends all day. Who's going to be better? Obviously the person who's playing, even if they don't really know what they're doing, because they're just getting out there and they're playing. So if you want to get better at coaching, you have to be coaching. Like that's the number one thing. Like you have to be coaching if you want to get better at coaching. You have to be coaching. Now, the fortunate thing is you don't have to choose one or the other. You don't have to choose like book knowledge or applied knowledge. You should always be applying and then also always seeking out to learn. But it's just getting those coaching reps that really helps. So that's sort of the underlying thing. And I'll kind of talk about some ways that you can kind of get those coaching reps. So you're in high school. Okay, your coaching reps are not going to be coaching a collegiate team, and probably not even. So working camps is kind of a no-brainer. Now, you may not be able to you're not going to go work a college camp while you're still in high school, obviously, right? Because probably not going to be working other high schoolers. But like middle school camps, things like that, you may be able to coach. When I was not in high school, after I was in college, and then after I was graduating college and running some club programs and camps, I was coaching all the time. And one of the camps that I would do, especially all summer, okay, like I was just grinding all summer doing all these camps. Club volleyball doesn't really pay the bills. The camps pay the bills, and then they last over the club season. So when I was doing all that, I was running camps, and one of the camps I would run was like kind of a middle school day camp. And we would have, I wouldn't get them paid, but they'd be like high school counselors. And it was kind of like like one of these typical sort of summer camps for middle schoolers. Like the morning is sort of like the activity they would do. So maybe they would do volleyball camp or basketball camp or kickball, or I don't know if there was kickball camp, but maybe there would be like a cooking camp, or they would sort of do their camp activity in the morning. And then like they would go to lunch, and then after lunch they would do like the all camp stuff, like whatever camp activities that all the campers who were doing the different kind of activities, like those kind of camps. So I was running a middle school one. It's not like it was like super high level, but it paid me a little bit. And we were teaching the kids volleyball. You know, they're in middle schools. They were learning how to play, and all that. It's coaching. And I'd have high school counselors because, you know, hey, high schoolers are happy to get, I don't know, whatever we paid them, minimum wage, hey, $7.50 an hour or whatever. Okay, so they would make, I don't know, whatever, $150 or $200 for the week, or whatever it is for kind of working a full week of camp, and they would get to coach a little bit, and that's good coaching experience. Good coaching experience for high schoolers, because if you're a high school volleyball player and you're really interested in coaching, you probably you're probably not a terrible player. You probably know how to play a little bit, right? If you were like the world's worst, maybe you were just the worst player ever. So you're like, I'm giving up on playing, so I want to coach. Now, the problem is you love volleyball, so you're probably pretty decent at it. Um, and then you coach some middle schoolers who are really maybe inexperienced. Maybe some of them have been signed up for volleyball camp and haven't played volleyball before. Maybe they signed up for volleyball camp because they want to try it for the first time. That's a good coaching experience. Actually, it's really good. Actually, I think that there's a lot of Division I coaches who would still continue to get value out of that. You know, just this total beginner. You know, hey, okay, we're going to practice passing. And they look at you and say, what's passing? Okay, put your platform together. What's a platform? Put my wrists and hands together. What are my wrists and hands? No, okay. Hopefully at least they know what their wrists and hands are. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about the very basics. Okay, this is how you put your wrists and hands together. Straighten your arms, lift them up like this. Yeah, teaching really basic, really beginners how to play volleyball is, I think, actually a good experience. And the good thing about like learning to coach when you're young, I started coaching when I was in high school as well. Those are the only options you have when you're 17 years old. You know, the local Division I school is not hiring you to be their new assistant coach. Clearly, even the high school varsity team, you're not helping out with the high school varsity team because you'd be playing on it. So you're not coaching that team. You're only coaching like the most beginner players. So that's kind of good actually, because there's a lot to be learned by coaching kids like that if you're coaching them seriously. A problem with a lot of people who do camps and who do stuff like that, they don't get much out of it in terms of coaches because they're just trying to get a little paycheck and they're hoping to get assigned with the better kids, and they have to coach the weaker kids. But no, if you like really take seriously like trying to help out even these like really beginner players, you actually really will learn a lot from it. So coach camps, coach like middle schoolers. When I was a high schooler, my first coaching, so my parents were coaches, and my first coaching assignment, I was a sophomore in high school. So I had really only been playing organized volleyball for 2 years. I grew up kind of in the gym, around the gym, was always helping out, maybe peppering a little bit, all that. But I didn't really start playing on a team until high school. So, I was familiar with the games. I wasn't like some kind of expert, and okay, I got better quickly, but I wasn't the most experienced player. But I was a sophomore, and my mom was coaching a 15 and under club team. So these girls 1 year younger than me. I was a sophomore and they were freshmen for the most part. And she had an 8th grader on the team. Okay, so he was playing up a year and inexperienced, but okay, tall and a little athletic, and was going to the high school that my sister coached at. So okay, yeah, find a spot for her for sure as the 10th player. She's this sort of athletic young player. Who's pretty inexperienced though, and didn't really know how to take much of an approach. Just kind of somebody who had some potential, but needed some help. And my mom was like, I don't necessarily have time to stop and explain everything to this girl all practice. So, you like to come, and I would come in, some nights of practice anyway and play against the girls. And, the girls about my age to come in, play against them a little bit and just whatever, kind of be an extra body at practice and hang around and whatever like that. And she's like, hey, so just, can you come to practice and can you help out, this girl? Can you just explain some of the more basic things that Courtney may not know. Courtney, hi, how you doing? Okay, still friends. That she might not necessarily know that some of the other girls, like maybe she doesn't know how to stay in rotation. You just help her out a little bit. So I was kind of like, that was my first coaching experience. It was kind of like her personal coach for the first like few weeks of practice to just kind of catch her up on some of the basics because she hadn't played high school volleyball yet. And the other girls, 9th graders, they had all, at least some of them varsity or at least JV volleyball as freshmen, And then that kind of just stuck to me helping out with the rest of the season. with that team. And it wasn't really much experience or necessarily even much better really than these girls. But I just was kind of a helper. I mean, like, I could serve some balls at practice and hit some balls in. And then, that stuck with me for the rest of high school. And that was a lot of value because just learning how to help keep a practice going well. My mom was the coach of the team. She knew what she was doing. It's not like she really needed me to help her coach, but turned out it was helpful just to have somebody help keep the practice going correctly. Hey, Joe, can you keep score on this drill? Or, okay, like, hey, get the ball carts over there and get this over there and help get this line going, this or that. And, it just, I guess because that was my first coaching experience, it kind of sunk in the value to me of just keeping things going smoothly, because that was really all I could contribute. It wasn't like I knew all that much about like how to do the stuff all that well. I wasn't any kind of expert, but and so that's always been a priority. I think it's just kind of always sunk into me as a coach, like just value a practice going smoothly. And that was sort of how I started, just learning, hey, what can I do to just help make practice go? And that's pretty valuable. And then while I was doing that, I was really enjoying it. I was enjoying playing, just enjoying being in the gym, seeing other people get better. And I started helping out with some of the younger teams. So maybe, I was a junior and senior, and I was helping out, come in on the 12s practice or the 13s practice and help them out, just, you don't have to be, if you're rating your knowledge from 0 to 100, 100 is, you're coaching the Olympics. Your average 12s and 13s, they're at like a 20. So if you're like a 30 or a 35, you can help them out. You don't have to be like this incredible expert. You have to have some humility to know what you don't know. But you can start helping kids that are younger than you. You don't have to be super advanced. And sometimes there's just a lot of value in coming to a younger practice and playing with them a little bit. Not playing in the sense that it's about you, but playing in the sense of like facilitating, hop in and play a little bit and, pass some balls so setters can set with a little more control than they're used to, or vice versa, set some balls so that hitters can get a little more control than they're used to getting from their 12 and under setters and stuff like that, and kind of learn how to be a facilitator. I think is really, really valuable. You start to learn how to teach in that way. You learn to teach by showing rather than telling, and which will hopefully serve you well for the rest of your coaching career. So kind of do some camps and kind of just wiggle in. If your high school runs a camp or middle schoolers, you probably can coach at that. Do that kind of stuff. You're just coaching young kids. I started doing lessons when I was in high school for younger kids. That may or may not be an option. I was able to kind of get the reputation of maybe somebody that was worth doing that with. And, so that may or may not be developed, as you start to go. I also think that reffing is kind of good if you're young, if you're in high school. I reffed middle school when I was in high school, and kind of middle school in like 5th and 6th grade, that kind of stuff. If you have a program like that, and I like that. I learned about I learned the rules. To this day, it's kind of funny. Even as I was a beginner coach, by the time I actually got to be a head coach, I had been, I don't know, so I was 22 by the time I was a head coach, because I've been coaching for like 7 years, coaching in quotation marks, helping. And I had been even in the gym before that, stat boy and ball boy and whatever like that. And I never had any problems with rotations. I had reffed for a few years by that point. I had reffed for like 6 years. I started reffing middle school when I was in high school. And when I was in college, I would ref club and stuff like that. And, so like rotations, that kind of stuff never were a problem for me by then. I was very used to it. And I don't know. I also think like when I was in high school, like reffing middle school games, it's not bad to be, you're in charge when you're a ref. Of all the people in the whole gym, the ref is the most in charge, more than the head coaches on either team, or the ref should be. That's good for you. That's a good kind of experience. I can remember being in high school and reffing middle school games and having adults, be mad at me. Hey, I called them out of rotation and they were upset about it. And I had to hold my ground. Well, if I was correct, okay, I had to make sure I was correct. And I was, of course I was always correct. No. I had to make sure I was correct and stand up and not get all angry back at whatever middle school coach was getting mad at me, but clearly explain to them, this is the rule. This person has to be behind that person, and she's got to be on the right side of her. And that's where they need to stand in rotation. And you learn a little bit about being proactive when you're a ref, because it's nice if you can give the the kid or the coach a heads up. Hey, she's not in the right spot. Make sure I'll give you a play to adjust. This or that, and you got to do the coin toss. You got to be prepared when you're a ref. You have to bring your quarter. You have to bring your red and yellow cards. You have to bring your rotation sheet. When I was ref in middle school volleyball, you don't have a down ref and you don't have somebody really keeping rotations and all of that stuff. So you got to keep almost like the subs on pencil and paper, at least when I was doing it. So it's like, okay, you got to be organized and you got to keep things going. And that's valuable. That's pretty valuable. So I think that probably more kids might want to get into reffing if you want to get good at coaching. And the other thing is, reffing can pay okay. I mean, relative to what you make for a high school, I would go and ref like Sunday, games all Sunday to get like $100. And like, to me, that was like a lot. I can make $200 on a weekend, which, hey, when you're in high school, that's pretty sweet. More than I was going to get paid for coaching as a volunteer. So yeah, reffing's not a bad idea. It's just coach, and coach and care about it. I would also say, because I feel like a lot of people do camps and they do stuff, and it's like they don't really care about, like, they're just kind of putting in the work to get the camp done rather than like get the kid better or something like that. I don't know if it's like my ego or my competitiveness, but when I would work a camp or I would do this kind of stuff, I was always like, whatever net I have or whatever people I have, like, they're going to be the best ones. Like, when you're working, and you might not be working camps yet as a high schooler, like I said, maybe there's like a middle school camp or something you could work. But when you start working college camps or something like that at some point, you probably have a structure where it's like you're sort of, maybe there's a demo or maybe something like there's a lead coach is kind of running things and saying, hey, okay. And maybe you have you and maybe 4 other court coaches or 3 other or however many other court coaches. And your lead coach is going to maybe do some sort of demo and say, okay, we're going to get back out here and we're going to run this drill. Okay, break out back to your courts. And I was always like, my court is going to be the first one going. They're going to be doing it the best. Maybe not necessarily like the skills the best because you have who you have, but like they're going to run the drill the correct way, the fastest. And when we get called back in, we're going to go in at the right time. And we're going to switch at the proper amount of times. And like, I'm going to know my kids' names. I was like have always been a point of pride to me. I would always, within the first session, but usually I tried to, by the end of every, like if we did a drill, by the end of the first drill, I would try to know every kid's name. And that's something that I continue to do. I do a lot of these camps, so I do a lot of these programs. And sometimes I go in the gym and, I got 100 kids in the gym and I try to know everybody's name. With 100 kids, I can't always get them by the end of the first drill. Unless it's a really long drill, but always by like the end of that first session, I know all the kids' names. And that means a lot. And that makes a big impact on people. People remember you when you remember their name. A little more about that when we talk about favorite books, a little preview of that. But that's some of the stuff that you can be doing. Those are, to me, some of the foundational things about coaching that have nothing to do with passing technique, that have nothing to do with defensive strategy or offensive tactics or anything like that. It's basic things like being prepared, being on time, being organized, knowing people's names, looking at people, speaking at people, like learning how to do that stuff. So many young coaches don't know how to do that. They know how to play the game, and they even know what they should be teaching the kids, but they don't know like necessarily how to relate to kids, which is weird because when you're 22, if there's anybody that should be able to relate to a 15-year-old, it's a 22-year-old. You were only 15 7 years ago, or if you're 17, you should be able to relate to a 14-year-old. But a lot of times you don't. I mean, and no offense, that's the nature of being a teenager. Teenager is awkward in your own skin. So doing some of these little things, that really matters. And you're only going to get better at them if you care, if you like really care about this, whatever. To most other quote unquote serious volleyball coaches, what would seem like a meaningless middle school camp. But if you kind of take the pride in some of that, for me, like if I was coaching any camp, no matter the worst kids, whatever like that, I was like, every kid is going to know how to take a correct approach. Like they're going to be able to take, well, in the beginning, I would have taught a 3-step approach, left, right, left. Now I would teach a 4-step approach, right, left, right, left. But I would say, okay, there's going to be no goofy footed players that come off my court ever. Whatever, however, if I only have them for an hour, that's all we're going to do, whatever it is like that. But just, I would have little things that like really meant something to me. Because I was like, well, if somebody kind of comes in here and sort of judges me, like, well, I don't want them to just be like, oh, you went to camp with Joe, or you did a lesson with Joe, or Joe was coaching you and you have backwards footwork like that. It's not good. So just little things like that. And kind of going on this, like finding ways to be a coach in a low risk environment can make a big difference. Like I said, I've basically been coaching for like 7 years before I got my ever first head coach. So I started coaching, like I said, as a sophomore in high school, for whatever you can call it coaching, just kind of helping out at practice. But I had like a coaching role that year. Okay. It was help this girl get up to speed. Okay. And that was a coaching role. And then I had a little bit more and more of a coaching role. And went along with that. But they weren't big roles, especially in the beginning. As I got into college, I was coaching at camps. Eventually, I started running my own camps while I was still in college before I graduated, and then after graduating, and doing, personal training and all that kind of stuff. And so by the time and helping out with the club, and by the time I graduated, okay, now I can commit to being a full-time head coach, not necessarily a full-time coach. I was going to graduate school at that time, but I could be a head coach of a team. I can make all the practices and all the tournaments. But I had already been coaching for like 7 years. I had been to plenty of tournaments, plenty of club tournaments as a coach, not just as a player. I'd been on the bench and been as a coach, and mostly not had that much to do, and mostly couldn't really screw things up too badly. But I kind of already been through a fair amount before I got my first time as a head coach. I was a lot more prepared. I was a lot more secure, probably overconfident, to be honest with you. But so just I wasn't overwhelmed by some of the smaller details, and I had kind of seen some things already work out. So when you're an experienced coach, little things will throw you off, because this is even the nature for experienced coaches, but like when you're in the middle of something, it seems like so big. When you're having a dispute with a parent about playing time, it's like, this is such an aggravation. What is going on? They don't understand it. I got to explain it, all this and that. As you get more experience, you just start to see before the season even starts, well, okay, I got 3 outside hitters on this team. One of them is going to be complaining about playing time by the end of the year. Like, pretty sure of it. I don't know who it's going to be yet. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how the roles are going to work out. I don't know yet, but like probably one of these. So then you can start doing proactive steps. You can do proactive steps to cut it off. When I was my first year coaching 15s, when I was a head coach, I got passed up a pretty nice 14s team. Okay, so that's nice when you go coach for your parents' club. They give you a good team your first year. Okay, so I was starting with a nice team, qualified for nationals for a few years in a row. Okay, they're going to move from 14s to 15s. And I cut the girl who was the starting libero the last year. So not like a new girl that I was intending to be the libero. Maybe this previous libero was just going to be like a DS or something like that. Like I cut the girl who was the starting libero because I had another libero in mind. And notwithstanding cutting and all of that, some other things. It was a girl with fine players, nothing necessarily wrong with that. But there's maybe some other clubs that were trying to get her. Maybe she was considering going there, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, I just made the decision to, after the first night of tryouts, I made 2 nights, hey, going to cut you. I'm not going to offer you a spot team. And they were really kind of blindsided by that. But the decision that I made is I had been able to see over 7 years, of being on the bench with my parents, various teams, my sister's teams, all that kind of stuff, seeing her coach. I just seen that was not going, that sort of demotion in role and playing time was not going to work with her and the family. And there's nothing wrong with that too. It's like, hey, if I was the player, I wouldn't have probably have taken it either. And it just, and they were kind of flabbergasted. They're like, and I think even my parents were like, oh, are you sure? And this and that. But I just had seen that kind of situation. I already seen it play out a few times. So it wasn't like, okay, because tryouts, everybody kind of takes the role that they, like they'll take a spot, even if the role is not, ideal or whatever like that. They'll kind of talk themselves into it. And then halfway through the season, they actually don't have the role, like what you meant, what you said. And now it becomes a problem. So that was a situation I had. If I had kind of just jumped into that, I definitely would have tried to get this girl on the team. She was one of the 10 best players on the team at tryouts for sure. But she wouldn't have been a starter. She wouldn't have had the role that she had just had 3 straight years, basically being like one of the central players on the team. She wouldn't have had that role. And that was a good, I think, for sure. Well, I guess I don't know for sure, but I think that was the right role. I would make that move again. Having seen the whole season play, I would make that move again. But I had only been able to do that because I had worked up to it over 7 years. So that sort of low risk environment. And I kind of continued to always seek that even now. I always try to coach different people, different kids. I think when you look at innovation in any sport is not necessarily done at the highest level. That's where players can do the most stuff. But I can tell you, having been on Olympic staff and been on collegiate staffs and stuff like that, is it gets hard to experiment. It gets hard to step outside your comfort zone as a coach. It gets hard to not do what you know works the best right now, because you got to win. And there's people that really count on you. Like the season means a lot, not just to you, but like to your athletes. Like you don't want to try some new offensive strategy that you're not 100% like, you haven't coached that particular offensive tactic before. Man, you're going to like start implementing that in the Big Ten. That's tough. Like a lot of times you only see programs do that. Like after maybe it's a new coach coming in, or the program has like a couple bad years, or, they tried in the spring or something like that. That can be tough to do. So if you can find ways that are like a little lower risk, you can experiment around with it. I've always loved being involved with like some of the college national team programs or World University games, stuff like that. And those are really meaningful, but I don't necessarily have to like bring like my system in, because you get these kids that are coming in. It's like 2 weeks, they're going to train together a little bit and then play some basically exhibition matches. World University games, not an exhibition match, but you only have limited time. So it's not like you're training these players in your system. You got like a week of practice. So it's basically like, okay, pick out what they're already doing and kind of try to mesh it together the best way that you can. So sometimes you may be like, well, I normally wouldn't have a slide hitting opposite, but that's who we got this year, or something like that. Or like, hey, I prefer to run a faster tempo, but this player's not good at hitting it. So, okay, well, I'm going to have to learn how to adapt to her strengths a little bit. Then you get to learn like a little bit different. It doesn't mean that like you want to change your core principles as a coach, but like sometimes you may find, oh, okay, actually, wow, I maybe wouldn't have experimented that with my like main team, with my like important team, but wow, okay, this actually like really worked, and maybe I want to take a little bit of that back. So like as a high school kid, like you have the opportunity, because all your coaching experience right now is kind of going to be low risk. So if you can take these sort of like at the end of the day, like nobody's going to remember your middle school team, whatever middle school team you help out with in 5 years, like they're not going to really remember it, except for the kids that you put effort into coaching and helping. Like they'll remember like the relationship and like how you cared much more than what you actually teach them. So that's actually really great. Like the experience that you get is really valuable right now. And play indoors, play outdoors, play as much as you can, compete as much as you can, help other kids get things going, be a little self-organizing. That's one thing that I'm a little appreciative of, like the volleyball culture that I grew up in, playing boys volleyball in Delaware. We actually did have like a high school league, not like we had like 8 teams that played high school volleyball. So we did have a little bit of something going, but it was not we had to create some of the opportunities for ourselves. Like there was like one team that like we wanted to get an 8th team in the league, and we had to like go to that high school. Like that high school had a couple boys that we knew that did want to play, and then like we had to like help them get their team together. Like we weren't like, so then we could actually have another team to play, you know? So like that actually was like really beneficial, that I didn't come in a system that was like so well established and all of that. And like some, you know, I would play in adult leagues because I was trying to find guys to play with. Like there wasn't all this established club and high school volleyball like structure in place. And that's actually like pretty valuable, is having to have some initiative and get some things started. So like, this isn't like organize like a grass or a beach doubles league, or fours volleyball league or something like that with some of the kids in your area. You know, just get them together. It's not like you're going to coach them, but just be like, hey, I can get the nets, and like I'll get lines set up and this and that, and like we'll keep score, and we'll all do this, or you know, whatever it is like that. You know, just some of that organizational end of coaching, because I think a lot of players, maybe you do or maybe you don't, as they transition into coaching, they realize how much of coaching does not take place between the, you know, between the 900 square foot on the court. Like so much of coaching relates to stuff that happens off the court. And there's a lot of coaches that get into coaching and then they're kind of taken back by that. They're kind of overwhelmed. Like they've only played, and then they start coaching. So if you can find some other kind of coaching stuff to do, talk about learning about coaching ideas. I'll get to the books, but you know, I don't really have to answer this question. I think that you already know. Somehow you already found this podcast. Like you're a high school kid and you found this podcast. This is a pretty niche podcast. Okay. So I'm sure you already know you know about Coach Your Brains Out. You've been on YouTube, you're searching volleyball coaching, you know about Gold Medal Squared, you know about Art of Coaching, you know about this, you know about that, you're looking up video, you know, you're watching national teams, you're watching pro teams, you already know about all this stuff. If you don't know, you probably do know, but on Amazon Prime, you can rewatch all the AVP right now. It's pretty cool. I'm doing that myself. I'm studying some of these AVP Challenge Cups. If you got Amazon Prime, which I'm sure, let's face it, if you or somebody you know has Amazon Prime, you have Amazon Prime. So yeah, go study some of those matches and stuff like that. And I mean, on the beach side, players are pretty accessible, especially if you go down from like the top 4 on the beach. Like you find that 7 or 8 pair. You send them a message on some social media platform, like not too clingy, but like, hey, you know, I saw that you did this play or whatever like that, and like, hey, like how do you know, why did you do this play, or you know, what are you doing on this defensive move or something like that. You ask them some kind of like specific question that's easy for them to answer. I bet you get a response. You know, a little easier on the beach side, I think, than the indoor, but maybe some of the indoor players too. And yeah, study that kind of stuff. You've had some motor learning stuff on this podcast and on Coach Your Brains Out and some of those other podcasts. So learn a little bit about the science of stuff too. That's good. And then we'll get into the books because this is already running pretty good length. So we'll make that a next episode, and then you can just reread, study yourself. I would say that's one of the biggest things, because some of the recommendations, you know, I'm going to give my book recommendations or my resources that I found valuable. But my strengths may not be your strengths, and my weaknesses may not be yours. So you have to be yourself. And there's lots of different coaching personalities that are successful. And there's lots of different, coaches who are successful different ways. There's a lot of similar principles, but ultimately, like as a coach, you have to be authentic. So it's more about like taking yourself, building up your own strengths and all of that, and then fixing some of your weaknesses, but always kind of being you. I think that is pretty valuable. So, yeah, just kind of knowing yourself when you coach, and spending some time, like when you do get in the gym and you have an opportunity to coach somebody, you know, spend some time reflecting on it. You know, I keep a coaching journal. I have for a long time. I don't even have most of them. It's not like I was going back and studying them really. It's just the act of taking a little time to reflect hey, what went well at practice today? What did I do well? And what could I have done better? Like that's, I think, a little bit of that self-reflection will go a long way. All right. So question asker, who I didn't want to, I don't want to necessarily throw the name out there. So question asker, anonymous. I hope you found that helpful. And anybody else listening, I hope you found it helpful. Would love to hear more questions. I love these type of questions. I love like coaching stories and coaching journeys and how people get into coaching. I guess I had a pretty unusual one myself. So I'm always kind of interested in that kind of stuff. So if any of you have any questions related to that or anything else related to volleyball, obviously just shoot me a message or email me, joe.trinsey@gmail.com. Get in touch with me there, and I would love to hear. And we'll be coming back for a second part of this related to what are the books that you would recommend to aspiring volleyball coach, because and you know me, I'm a pretty voracious reader. I go through books and audiobooks like crazy. So until next time, thanks for listening.